Hola, good morning. It's Simon here from Clear Vision. Welcome to my channel, the place where you can find lots of psychology and its practical application in everyday life for general improvements, and also psychology which covers some of the more intense and more difficult things that life can throw away. And all the videos here are based on my experiences as a psychotherapist, as well as just a general human being going through life. Just a quick one today, something I'd seen recently on a couple of quite big media outlets, and they were discussing relationships, and I noticed the language that was being used when they were referring to red flags and deal breakers. So, I mean, as always with any media outlet and social media, my own channel included, always check, always get differing opinions, but always try and have an objective view of what people are saying, because people, and again, I'll own it, myself included, have their own biases. I have my own life experience, so I come from a certain angle when I'm talking here. Someone else will come at a different angle, and a lot of media outlets are also out to try and get clicks and likes, etc, etc. Yes, I know I am as well, and therefore will twist information. That's one thing I won't do. The language I found with the relationship stuff was quite egocentric, and this is something I've noticed a lot in terms of the toxic is your relationship toxic? What are your deal breakers? What are your boundaries? What are the red flags? And it's all about the one person. And whatever the relationship, whether it's romantic relationship with family members, relationship with people at work, someone in the shop, whatever, it's a two-way dynamic. And I think we often forget this. The default is to do the blame game, to look at someone else's faults, what they did, which then made us do a certain thing. So we're always kind of like reacting to the world around us, and I think that's a bit of a default position, which kind of leads people away from actual true growth. And the reason I say that is because it's one thing to notice what the environment does, but it's even harder to do the work on yourself. And I say this a lot in my videos. It always comes back to looking at yourself and how you are perceiving a situation, how you are influencing a situation, and what you're getting from a situation, whether it's negative or positive. And the same with the relationship red flags and deal breakers. One person's deal breaker may not be another person's deal breaker. Do you have unrealistic expectations from your partner? I do know of people who, absolutely one rule for one person in the relationship, in which they spread into the relationship, is absolutely no raised voices, no curse words, no expression of anger at all within this relationship. It may work for them. From my viewpoint, my opinion, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, someone's trying to avoid something here, and putting a heavy influence on the other person, a large request onto the other person to not do this in order to avoid something. We are humans, so in this example, actually there's nothing wrong with raised voices, there's nothing wrong with curse words, and we are all, I think most of us at some point are guilty of saying the wrong thing in the wrong temper and maybe hurting someone's feelings. But the intention to do it wasn't there. We just, because we're human, we lost that momentary, there was that lack of control, or one thing after another, and we exploded. Now, if your deal breaker is, as I said, a little bit unrealistic, you'll walk away from that. And I think what I'm trying to say here is relationships, a real relationship, a wholesome relationship takes effort, work, compassion, a little bit of picking up the slack for the other person sometimes, lots of backwards and forwards, lots of looking at the relationship, lots of introspection, and lots of owning responsibility for yourself. And a lot of the relationship advice out there doesn't come across that way, it doesn't read that way, it doesn't sound that way. It's about what the other person could do for you, and that's unrealistic. It's not going to bring you a wholesome relationship, because if you have all of these deal breakers, and maybe it's not many, but if you have these deal breakers, it's got to be this. Trying to find that specifically and find someone to fit into that specifically is like, it's just unrealistic. It's rarer than rocking horse shit. It's like, it's not going to happen, because unless you want to have a relationship with a robot. So when looking at relationships, or your relationship with whoever it may be specifically, like I said, family, romantic, whatever, please note that it's your two individuals navigating your way through life and trying to have a relationship with each other at the same time. This is no easy task to complete. This can be very, very difficult, and someone's going to fall down here and do the wrong things, and then you're going to fall down and do the wrong things. So yes, be aware of red flags and have deal breakers within your relationship, but note that they're yours. So for instance, what other boundary could there be? I don't know, smoking, laziness, sitting down watching the TV, not having much ambition, whatever your boundary may be. And these were some of the ones listed in the article I was reading, articles. Now, the question you need to ask is, did you notice it in the beginning? And if you didn't, why not? Because chances are they're doing the same thing they've been doing the whole way along. So somehow, unless they manipulated you somehow, which kind of wouldn't make much sense, but what I'm trying to say is take the objective view and have a look at yourself as well. Has it always been there? Did you ignore it? Are you only noticing it now because the rose tinted glasses have come off and actually they haven't changed? Some of the clue will be if your partner's standing there going, what are you talking about? I've always done that. I've always done that. Here, the thing to remember is relationships change and evolve and move, and people don't necessarily always play by the rules or play how we'd like to in the relationship. But the markers of a negative relationship are when things keep happening the same way. So when is a good time to walk away? Well, first of all, when it's abusive and you're losing yourself. But that doesn't mean that's every time your partner every time your partner is unhappy about something, they use swear words. Okay, maybe you can actually, if it disturbs you that much, then maybe you should leave them rather than trying to change them, or maybe look at why curse words disturb you so much. If your partner, however, is absolutely tearing you down with these curse words every other day, that's a different matter. So again, it's like looking at, and it is a fine line, it's like looking at when it becomes abusive or when it becomes toxic. And I've known people to be in relationships, and I think myself included, where you kind of go, on paper this is bad, but there's so much growth coming from this relationship for both of us. And I think what we don't realize within relationships is that they go through periods of tumultuous periods, and this is like a resetting of the relationship, a reaffirming of the boundaries, movement of, you are not the same person you were last year, you are not the same person you were 10 years ago. So if you're in a long-term serious relationship, there are going to be these periods where you really grind against each other, and you may stand there and go, do you know what, you're a fucking asshole and I never knew why I was with you. Now, if you've got this firmly set deal breaker, red flag, that's a red flag, and I have seen this between couples, it's a red flag. It's an evolution. Check it out, see if it's an evolution. This is not making excuses for people who are abusive. That's something very, very different. But if your relationship is to evolve, it will go through tumultuous periods where you will clash, where you will shout and scream at each other, where you will bang doors. The mark of a good relationship is the ability not to avoid those conflicts and those periods, but the ability to work through them to bring harmony and growth the other side. That's the mark of a good relationship. Not, you've transgressed one of my boundaries today, therefore we're done. That's quite cold, and there's no growth in that. And it's the same for anything. If we run around looking at the environment, expecting the environment to not give us any challenges, not give us any problems, not give us any transgression at all, we're not going to grow. We grow when things get pushed against us, when there is a transgression, when we grow from that introspection, from hold on, what's the problem with the curse words, what's the problem with the shouting, is it my problem, is it triggering something in me from, do they remind me of my parents when I was a kid, or an older sibling, or something, so I was always screaming and it was frightening when I was a child, therefore when I'm in an adult relationship, if my partner stubs their toe, goes fuck, rah, 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 I'm like completely triggered and traumatized? Or have I been at the receiving end of abuse at some point in my life, where I've been violently attacked and shouted at, and then my new partner's doing the same thing, and there's a red flags? Well, probably you're in danger. There's something different. Try to avoid the egocentricness of where you can go with things sometimes. Relationships are not easy. Any sort of relationship is not easy, especially if it grows, if it's a long-term relationship. These need to be remolded, these need to evolve, and evolution, growth, can sometimes be quite painful. So successful couples, and I don't mark a successful couple on their longevity, successful couples tend to be marked, and successful relationships tend to be marked by their ability to resolve conflict, their ability to grow from conflict, their ability to move forward from conflict, not their ability to avoid it. That's not always the mark of a good relationship. It may bring longevity, and it may bring quite a lot of peace, and great for you if it works that way, but it's not generally considered a good marker of a healthy relationship. Avoidant, no. Able to move through and support, yes. And I think that's where I was really going in this video, because I think media outlets have a lot of influence here, and I know I'm kind of dragging at two strands here, but there's an element of responsibility in what people have to say, and there's an element of in the speaker, and I think there's an element of responsibility needs to be taken by the listener. Things can be written, but there is a bit of a trend of this egocentric way of being nowadays, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it can be balanced with, hey, this is a relationship, we're two human beings, we're gonna have bad periods, we're gonna have periods where I'm not such a great human being, actually maybe I'm a pretty ugly one and a pretty hostile human being to be around because I'm going through some shit. That's not an excuse, but that's a reality. And then being able to support each other through that and move through it, and recognize when this is not going to stop, this is an escalation into abuse, which is something quite different, which I'll do another video on as well. I hope all of that helps and made a bit of sense. Like I say, I know I was pulling at two strands there. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves, and give your partners a big kiss and a hug and lots of love. Adios.